Welcome to All Villa, No Filler. Please like and subscribe below. As I say, if you don't subscribe, you're a Birmingham City fan. There, I said it. Today, I'm joined by AVFC London Lions chairman Paul Webb. It's great to have you back, Webbo.
Yeah, great to be back, Frankie. Yeah, enjoying the summer break.
Yeah, no, always good. Yeah, I'm loving the heat at the moment, although it's very hot in this room. I feel like I'm in a sauna at the moment. Now today we're going to do a fun feature about the upcoming season. It's extremely early days, but me and Webbo are both going to predict our own version of the final Premier League season for the 2023-24 season. And then in a year, we'll come back to it and see just how wrong we really were. So I'll throw this out to you though first, Werbo. I think we should a bit of jeopardy here. I think whoever gets closest to the league table obviously wins, but so therefore whoever loses has to buy the other man a Nando's. Does that work for you?
I can enter into that bet. That's a lot of pressure. I might have to change a few things around, but yeah, let's go for it. I'll be a man of my word if I lose and buy you a Nando's, mate.
The Nando's challenge. Here we come. Right, this really is, this is high. This is high pressure for me now because I bloody love wild herb sauce. So right. So
as long as they don't come after you and have a lawsuit at the end of it, then you'll be on your own, Frankie. If that's the case.
yeah. On my own again. Right. So first off, Webber, I'll ask you then. Let's start off. You know, it's extremely early days, as I say. God only knows what's going to happen in this transfer window. It is early or mid-June now, I guess. But who's going to win the Premier League next season? If you have to say it now, who's going to win it?
Yeah, it is really early. Obviously, the fixture's coming out tomorrow, and that can give you I could change my mind tomorrow because if you get in a promoted team away, as we often do, you can sort of see a trajectory of a poor start. And if you have a poor start in the league, it can be very hard to recover from that. We obviously did well last season, but genuinely, you want a good start. It's very hard not to pick Man City as league champions. They've just won the treble, but I'm actually going to swerve away from them. I have a mindset that they have been so determined, so driven to win the Champions League that it's going to be very hard for them to find motivation again. It's not going to be hard for them to be talented, gifted, the best football team. They just have that in abundance. And if they have one or two players off form, they've got one or two, three or four more players that will just come in and do as good a job, if not better. But I think they're going to struggle to begin with maybe a distraction, a bit of we completed everything last season. How do we start going again? And they don't always start the season well. So I think they're going to have a few nervy results to begin with. Speaking of the fixtures tomorrow, Frankie, I'd love to play Man City in one of our first three games because I think they're going to start the season slow and you may as well get it out of the way and you don't want to play them in the running. I actually think in my predictions, I'm going to stick Man United as champions for next season. A lot of it is down to, I assume their board is going to go out and make impactful signings. I think where Declan Rice ends up could change my decision. Where Harry Kane ends up could change my decision. I think if I'm the Man United board, I'd be going hell for leather to sign those two players. I thought Ten Hag had a really good season. If you look back at their season they had, the Ronaldo saga was handled excellently by Ten Hag. He stamped him out, showed that he is the boss, which Solskjaer couldn't do with Ronaldo. They got to two cup finals, lost to Man City, who are the best team in Europe. They did okay in the league, lost to the mighty Villa, lost to Liverpool 7-0, but genuinely third in the league wasn't a bad return, and the two cup finals. So I think this whole treble talk will have really, really pissed Man United off. Like, who's done the better treble? It feels now Man United are living on their history too much, and that will really, really irk them off. And I think Ten Hag will be a man on a mission. So my tip to win the league is going to be Man United, Frankie.
Okay, I see what you mean there. I mean, I think United, they're a Harry Kane away. I think they're a big striker away, and God, Declan Rice if they could get Kane and Rice, then I'd start to believe they could win anything really.
Yeah.
It just depends on what they do this summer, I think, with regards to a striker. But it was an impressive start from this season from Ten Hag to win a trophy, get to an FA Cup final, and to bounce back from those horrible games at the start.
Yeah.
I just feel with City, I think most teams would probably have a lull after a big season like this with the treble. United did when they did their treble. I think, Inter, when they did a treble, they fell off a bit.
Yeah.
But I've just got this feeling that Guardiola is so driven and that team just are so good that I fear they're going to do a treble again next season. I think that will be their ambition, is that we're going to do a treble, maybe even a quadruple.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to win a trophy, aren't they? They're not going to go. They're not going to get knocked out of everything. You saw it's a given under Guardiola that Man City will win a trophy. I don't know. I fancy them to start slow, and that's why I was talking about the fixtures. If a Man United, a Liverpool, an Arsenal can really, really hit the ground running and put a gap between Man City, then there is a chance.
Yeah.
If, as we saw this season, it needed to be an even bigger gap. But I think Man United are going to be hurting for it. But you're right, Man City are not going to be as bold as to say they're going to finish at the top two. I had them finishing second. That's as far low as I could put them. They're going to be in the title race, aren't they? They're not going to go off the curb that much. Not all of them are going to be partying like Jack Grealish for the next 6 months. Some of them might be professional eventually.
Yeah, hopefully they're all of them party for like that for the next year, so that we all stand a chance. Hopefully, but unfortunately, I've gone with Jack Grealish to win 3 Premier League titles in a row. I think City are gonna. I think they're going to win the league next season and maybe come close to a double treble. But as you say, they do start slow. So if somebody like a Liverpool, Arsenal, United can get a winning run early next season, build up some of a gap, maybe a team like a Liverpool under Klopp might be able to handle that pressure.
Yeah,
better than Arsenal were this season.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
But we'll see. So I'll go with City. But I was going to say top 4, but we should start with Villa. Like, well, I mean, it's nerve-wracking talking about Villa, trying to predict Villa, trying to be positive about Villa, because I get too nervous about it. But Webbo, where have you gone for Aston Villa to finish next season?
Now, this was one of the hardest teams to predict, because as I was going through the 20, there's 4 teams that are sort of essentially having the same problem next season. You've got Villa, Brighton, Newcastle, and West Ham. West Ham's slightly different, because the point I'm making is, how will these teams do with European football? We are hoping that we get through the playoff round, so that we're guaranteed at least 6 more games in the group. But Newcastle, Villa, and Brighton, they are entering new territory. Brighton completely new as a club. Villa and Newcastle, it's been decades since we've competed in Europe, so it is a new entity. West Ham have obviously been in Europe the last few years, but last year struggled in the league form. They are going to lose Declan Rice. So are they going to struggle with Europe and Premier League? I don't know. So, but that is my biggest concern, is the unknown of how we're going to deal with extra games. You just never know. There's examples of teams being fine. There's probably more examples of teams struggling. I'm not too concerned that we'll lose any of our star players. The only 2, when I was looking through it, that could potentially move, Emi Martinez. It wouldn't surprise me if someone makes a bid, but it feels like that's gone quiet. It feels like, I saw Pickford being linked with Man United. It doesn't feel like there's any momentum with Martinez wanting to leave or anything like that. Qualifying for Europe, I think, has guaranteed him to stay. Yeah. But Frankie, if he was to leave, that sets us back again. The other player, Watkins, could Tottenham put in a massive bid to replace Kane with Watkins? Would he go there? It's a big club. Yes, they're not in Europe, but they are, you would imagine they will be better suited to qualify for Europe if they get something right at that club. It's a very strange club at the moment, but ultimately, we should only improve our squad. Tielemans already a great signing. But then you look at 2 of the teams we finished above last season, Chelsea and Spurs, you sort of just have that gut feel that they're going to be better this season. You just sort of feel that they will. So I said that I was as much as to say that I don't think we're going to win a trophy next season, but I think we're going to get to the quarterfinal of every cup competition we have entered into and lose in 3 quarterfinals, but finish 7th again. So I think much of the same. So I think we're going to have a good balancing act. You also look at the league, and there's quite a lot of teams that are mid-table and are going to be safe.
Yeah.
And there's no reason why we're going to get sucked in. I see that anything below 10th, I just can't see that happening. We've got too good a squad, too good a manager. The momentum's there. You're almost looking at now a bad season would be at 10th. And what a great feeling that is. So I've stuck us in at 7th, Frankie, and I've stuck us in for 3 decent cup runs, but without any semi-finals.
Yeah, I could see that. I've put us in 6th.
Okay.
I've had us finishing ahead of Chelsea and Spurs, which I'm very nervous about. I'm more confident about finishing ahead of Spurs than I am Chelsea, just because, I mean, while Chelsea's a bit of a basket case under Todd Bowley, Pochettino is a serious manager, and they still have a serious squad. Although it's a flawed squad, I think. I think there's actually a lot of work needs to be done there. Tottenham, I like Ange from Celtic, but to be honest, before Unai Emery was linked with Villa, he's who I wanted. I thought of Villa, just the names that were linked at the time. But I think with Tottenham, I just feel like I don't know whether Levy's just too much of a hindrance at the moment. Like the Tottenham fans I talk to seem to be very, very negative about him.
Yeah.
And again, it's a team that I think needs to spend quite a bit of money now. And you're already seeing reports about, Kulusevski. I think it was like he's trying to go cheaper on a player like him, and that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Just get him in. So yeah, I if Kane stays, which I think knowing Levy will probably force him to, maybe it's.
I just want to. He'll do one of those just oil protests and tie him to the posts at Tottenham Stadium so he can't leave.
Yeah, it's just Harry Kane there at midnight every night.
Yeah,
my hero still again. Charlie Kane, his brother, trying to get him out. Like, I can't knock it down. So yeah, I'm gonna be ambitious and say Villa finish ahead of Chelsea, Spurs again, and come 6th.
So based on that, I think I've got Chelsea finishing above us, which would probably indicate our top 6. Our top 7 is the same, but maybe it's just the Chelsea and Villa positions that might be slightly altered.
Yes, I think so. I mean, the only caveat is, of course, the Europe thing. And, West Ham dealt well with it last season or the season before last, when they got to the semi-finals of the Europa League. Still came, I think it was 7th, maybe in the Premier League.
Well, it would have been, because they qualified for Europe based on their league position. So it felt like last season was a bit of an odd one for West Ham. But yeah, so the teams can't cope with it. There's no doubt about that. But Chelsea don't have Europe, nor do Tottenham.
Yeah.
You just sort of feel if Chelsea can get rid of 10 players and actually just create a harmonious squad, which is going to be really, really hard because the amount of egos and money players they've got is absurd. But if they can create a balanced squad who's happy or can be happy playing minimal amount of games for Chelsea, then they will be a force next season. It's a really odd transfer window where your priorities are not having to sell for a financial reason, but having to sell because you've got far too many players. I can't ever remember a team being in that position. So, and right now, Chelsea are a bit of a mess, but you could easily see a route for them challenging for the top 4, I think.
Yeah, and they've got enough quality, and they'll sign another couple. And Nkunku, I think, is coming in from Leipzig. And, as I say, Pochettino's been there and done it in the Premier League.
Yeah.
I think, and he'll probably sign another couple of players for 100 million. In fact, if I saw Todd Bowley now, I'd tell him that Marvelous Nakamba's a brilliant CDM and worth probably about 40 million, just so that then I know he'd bid 50 million. So Nakamba for 50 million. Get me involved at Villa Park, that's right, get me on the board. Apparently it was personal. We talked him into 20 million for Chukwuemeka, so Who knows?
That is looking crazy and every day, isn't it? That's probably the most bizarre transfer of the whole of last season, really, when you analyse it.
Madness. So we're both feeling good about Villa. We'll obviously talk more about Villa in the coming weeks as well as more things develop and all that, and we'll have a better sense of where Villa might be aiming next season. But at the moment, it's all upward trajectory at the moment. It feels like,
Yeah.
but we'll see. We'll see. So that's where Villa will be. Top four then. So you've gone with United to win the league, and who's 2, 3, and 4 for you?
So I've got Man City second,
Yeah.
Liverpool third, and Arsenal fourth. But the third and fourth is really I wouldn't be having too much of an argument with over Arsenal finishing third and Liverpool finishing fourth. But I think both will be good enough. Arsenal for me are the real strangers because I do feel that's almost quite disrespectful based on how well they were this season. And they're only going to strengthen if they sign. They're linked with Cancelo, Mount, Rice. If they could get them in, they are going to be better than last season. I don't know what it is about Arsenal. I just still can't quite get my head around that. This was their opportunity.
Yeah,
they sort of a few of their players for me performed overachieved as individuals, and I think next season a couple of them. Maybe Ramsdale, the midfielder who escaped Xhaka. I think he was overachieving last season, and I think their form might tail off a little bit.
Yeah.
So I think Arsenal fans would probably be really expecting a top of the table push, but I just feel like they missed the opportunity with Man United having such a poor start, Liverpool being off the boil. But it's strange, you say miss an opportunity to win the league. But if we'd have sat here this time last year, frankly, none of us would have been talking about Arsenal in the title. So they did have a really, really good season. It just ended quite poorly. So I've had them down to win the FA Cup. I think they'll win the FA Cup, but finish in the top four. I've gone for them to be fourth because I think Liverpool, if you read everything they're talking about, and they've obviously got quite a few players to replace, which I'm sure they will, they were devastated with finishing fifth. They were talking about how unacceptable it was. You sort of just feel that a Jurgen Klopp reaction will be as stronger than a Mikel Arteta reaction. So I've had Liverpool to finish third, and it wouldn't surprise me if they go very, very deep into the Europa League. They must start that tournament as favourites.
Oh yeah.
One of the favourites. They shouldn't be in that tier. They are so strong, and they will sign players. They're expanding their stadium. Everything's just growing at Anfield. They will be set huge expectations that they have to finish in the top four, and I think they will comfortably finish in the top four. They could even be a 3-horse title race between them and the Manchester clubs. I just think Arsenal will be a little bit short of them. So I've got Man United to win it, Man City second, Liverpool third, and Arsenal fourth.
Okay. Right. Well, mine is get it up now. There we are. So mine is City. I've gone with Arsenal to come second again. Liverpool third, United fourth.
The same top four then, just slightly different order.
Yeah. I think Arsenal, I think Declan Rice is such a fantastic player that I think he adds so much to. In a way, Rice at West Ham reminds me of Grealish at Aston Villa. I think that Villa played ahead of themselves where our squad was at the time. Yeah. Because Grealish was there. I just don't think we stay in the Premier League in our first season without Jack Grealish, and I think we probably come quite far down points wise. And Rice, I think, does something similar for West Ham, and I have West Ham down actually to be a team that falls off next season.
Yeah,
after the high win in the Conference League, losing Declan Rice, I think it's really hard to replace Rice. I'm not sure they'll be able to. I think it will take a while for them to adapt to that. Maybe they'll make some great signings and maybe it'll all work totally fine. But I just can't help but think that losing him is a real blow. But to Arsenal, then it has the opposite effect of being maybe that talismanic presence, closer to the defense that maybe they didn't have, when they needed it last season.
Yeah, they relied heavily on Partey, who was excellent, and then as soon as he went off and Saliba went off,
Yeah.
they did struggle. So that they are being linked with the right sort of players. So the Arsenal one, yeah, I can certainly see them finishing higher than fourth, where I've got them, because they were so good for a period last season. They were so good to watch.
Yeah, they were.
And who knows, they may react to being beaten and come out all guns blazing. It may have that type of reaction. Well, I don't know.
Yeah, I guess that happened to Man United when they won the Premier League in 92-3 when they robbed Aston Villa, of course, and finished second. Still not over that Oldham Athletic. Thank you very much. But I remember the season before, Man United bottled it. You know, that was all the talk. And I don't know, maybe Arsenal can come back. And I think with Rice and maybe a couple of other signs have been linked with Kai Havertz today, who is a player that I don't quite know where he fits in that Arsenal team at the moment. Maybe Arteta has an idea of how he wants to play with him. Then Liverpool, of course, McAllister, excellent signing. I think great player. They need to fix their midfield, don't they? It's as simple as that. But I do wonder if Klopp, been there 7 years now, 8 years now. I'm intrigued to see how Liverpool bounce back and whether they can keep the Klopp high energy style going. I mean, when they're good, they're unstoppable.
Yeah.
It just feels, I mean, it'll go one or two ways. Either they'll just be another middling season, or they'll really bounce back and just blow everyone away and maybe be the team that wins the league. But it's going to require quite a bit of fixing in midfield, I think, for them to do that. And then Man United, it just depends on the striker. I think if they can get Kane, then I'd probably stick them higher. But at the moment, I just think they'll get fourth. So that's the top four. Europa League places then, fifth and sixth. What have you gone for?
So I had fifth Chelsea.
Okay.
I sort of we talked about them earlier. I think I think Pochettino will come in and be ruthless. He'll get rid of who he wants to get rid of, and create a as balanced, harmonious squad as Chelsea can ever have. And without Europe, I think they will be focused on the league. Mm-hmm. I could see an argument for them finishing in the top four, but I just felt the other teams were so much better than them last season. That gap between Chelsea and the top four was so huge that it will take quite an improvement to get there. But I think they'll do the majority of the right things. So I've had them finishing fifth, and then I've got Newcastle sixth. Again, Newcastle, it's very strange because they are going to throw money at it this summer. Mm-hmm. They've been linked with so many players. Literally, if you just look at the transfer market, they are linked with everyone, and most of them will be just lazy journalism because they've just got money. But the way they did it, you would have thought Felix could be going there, Maddison. They will attract a lot of players, or they can afford absolutely anybody. They're in the Champions League. It is a huge aura around that club. I just feel like the other teams a couple of them will overtake them. Liverpool notably will get better than them. And I just think Chelsea, without having Europe, Newcastle may struggle balancing the two, but I actually think they're going to be quite a force in the Champions League. I can see them getting as far as the quarterfinals because St James's Park will be absolutely rocking. So I just think it's not meant to be disrespectful to Newcastle saying they're sixth. I think if anything, it's just it shows how well they did last season. That top four is so hard to break into. That sixth is still a very, very respectful place to finish. And it will take them a couple of seasons to get used to the Europe and Premier League. And when they crack that, they will become a top three, top four team because of how well financially they will be backed. But I think that will take a couple of seasons. So I think next season they'll have a good cup run. Could even see them competing at the tail end of the domestic cup competitions. But I've had them down to finish sixth.
I've got Newcastle in at fifth and Aston Villa at sixth. I think Newcastle, they've been linked today with Barella from Inter. So that's, a sign of this level of player that they are now able to go for, annoyingly. But bloody annoying. But they, what you said there about the Champions League, I actually had them to get to the semi-finals of the Champions League was my bet, because I think St James's Park will be rocking. Be a tough, really, really horrible place to go for a lot of teams on Wednesday night, middle of winter. And I think just a few teams might get caught out by it. Just this
I
intense.
think you're right. And you look at Inter's run to the final. I know they had to play AC Milan, and I think they had to play Benfica. So there's teams there that are beatable. So
Yeah,
if they ended up getting a Real Madrid, Man City, if they got to the quarter, there's teams that if the draw doesn't go favourably, fair enough. But I don't disagree. St James's Park next season in European football is going to be absolutely rocking, and that could have a detrimental effect on their league form.
yeah, I
Right, the
think so.
fans may be a little bit jaded when it comes to the league, and
Mm.
that was that overriding question for those teams I mentioned. The buzz around Europe. Do people get as excited when the league games come along? So let's say if we were to be playing Juventus on a Thursday night and then Luton at home on a Sunday, you could end up dropping points in games that you should be winning. So it's going to be a difficult balance. But I think Newcastle are going to have a really fun season. So yeah, fifth and sixth, I think we've got them pretty much in the same spot. So yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah, but I guess one question mark over them, other than the European experience as well, is I mean, firstly, I don't think they're going to concede as few goals as they did. I'm sure teams are going to work out a way of playing them that Villa did when we beat them 3-0. But I'd love to remind them of that. But I also think it's Eddie Howe. I'm intrigued to see how long Eddie Howe and keep up this level from Newcastle, because we've not really seen him managing at this level before. We've not seen him managing in the Champions League. So it's a whole new experience for him as well. And obviously he's a very talented coach. What he did at Bournemouth and what he's managed to achieve in such a short space at Newcastle. But it'll be interesting to see just how he does next season as well, I think, with the new pressures that come with it.
Yeah, I think just finally on that, if I was going to be really interested in the evolution of Newcastle, is when they start bringing in really, really big marquee names, perhaps like a Neymar.
Yeah,
At the minute, they've signed people that are honest, hardworking, with a bit of flair, and that's Eddie Howe can manage that type of player. Can he, if Newcastle want to go down that really expensive Mbappe style player, I don't think Eddie Howe is the right manager to keep that manager. So if the board want to sign an absolute star, I think Eddie Howe could be a little bit out of his depth then.
Yeah, that's something will be intriguing to watch over the next while. My tip is Eddie Howe is the next England manager. That's my prediction for the next few years. But so that's fifth and sixth. So Conference League then. I went with Chelsea and you went Aston Villa.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. And then there's the muddle. So the more exciting bit, relegation.
Yeah.
Who do you reckon is going to be the bottom three?
So this is when you offend people, right? So, so I have three teams to go down, but only one of the teams coming up. So I have Forest, Bournemouth, and Sheffield United.
Okay.
Go down. So Forest, I think, amazing season last season. Stayed up relatively comfortably. I think it was with a couple of games to spare, and they relied hugely on their home form. And the reason I have Luton staying up is the reason I have Forest going down, in the sense of Forest fans will their fan base now, that excitement in the Premier League's gone. So they've done the Premier League now for a season. The novelty of playing Man United, the novelty of playing those teams and winning has been and gone. They've achieved it. So now what does the next novelty, what does the next passionate response come from? Yeah. And if you look at Huddersfield, that's the marker that I have. A team that came up against all odds, stayed up against all odds, then the next season just absolutely plummeted. Yeah. So their fan base, any fan base, isn't going to be as excited second time around. So if they have one thing that drops off based on this season, they will go down. I think the home form won't be as strong. Yeah. I think they'll lose Brennan Johnson and/or Morgan Gibbs-White. And I think they will eventually sack Steve Cooper. They did such a good job keeping him. And I just think they will, then their owners have got it right at the moment, but their owners are a little bit crazy and they'll do crazy things this season. And I just think it'll be a season too far. And I mentioned Johnson. I would absolutely love him at the Villa. He's a great player.
Was going to mention him, Brennan Johnson. 30 million bid today from Brentford for him. You'd take him at Villa?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I think he's exactly the sort of player that can add depth to a number of key positions. Wouldn't know exactly where he would start for Villa, just because he's probably very similar to Buendia, but you sort of feel like Emery could get something new from him, and he could potentially just alter our formation to get him into the team. He could play on the wing a couple of times. It's certainly an improvement on like Traore or somebody like that into the squad. So yeah, he would be one of my number one players to go after and try and get.
What was that, sorry?
And if we did that, then I think Forest would struggle so much to replace him and Gibbs White.
Yeah, and he's so young as well. He's 21, 22, so such a huge upside, so much to learn from. And I think Emery would be a perfect coach for him.
Yeah.
Hopefully he watches this. I'll tag him in everything. No, he ain't watching this, is he? But no, I think he. I was not too sure of him, to be honest. And then when I started watching Forest more closely from about December onwards, every game I'd be like, all their home games largely, I'd be Morgan Gibbs White and Brennan Johnson are talismanic, really, really good players with huge upside. I love Gibbs White. I think he's really good. But Brennan Johnson, as you say, I mean, imagine Johnson, he kind of maybe playing in that Buendia role, and you've got Ramsey on the other side. So Ramsey and Johnson running at you. It gives Villa more pace, more directness. I just see exactly where he fits, and I think he'd be really well coached by Emery. But I think Forest will want more than 40 million for him. That's my prediction. So your bottom three then were Forest was one of them.
Yeah, Bournemouth as well. I think they were everyone's tip to go down last season, and they're my tip again to go down this season. I think Gary O'Neill did a great job, but they are punching above their weight, really. They're not going to go out and splash the cash. They've already lost Lerma, who signed for Crystal Palace. I know that was expected, but he played over 30 games for them in the last 5 seasons, so each of the last 5 seasons. So he's been a real stalwart of the Bournemouth team. They don't score a lot of goals. I could see Billings is also being linked with a move away, and they're just never going to be able to go out and splash the cash and attract a real big name to just come in and guarantee that they're going to be able to replace that sort of quality. They're not like a Brighton or Brentford, who have this fantastic scouting network. They're a team that just does enough to keep going by. And I think every now and again down at the bottom, you have to rely on a home support of like a real, make it a vicious atmosphere, make it a place to go. And I know we're terrible at Bournemouth, but it's not a hostile atmosphere. There's nothing, other than it being a really tiny stadium, and probably the dressing rooms aren't what these Premier League players are used to. It's not intimidating. That's why I think Luton are going to stay up, because they're going to assuming they play at Kenilworth Road, that is going to be a hostile place to go, and they'll do enough home points. But I just see Bournemouth drifting. I can see Gary O'Neill getting fed up with it and losing his job. And you just never see how Bournemouth can replace players quickly. So, yeah, I just think it'll be similar to Forest. It's a one season too many for them in the Premier League.
Yeah, I could see that. I think, same. Bournemouth are. I was amazed they stayed up this season, and as well as they did, to be honest. Because when I looked at that squad, and I remember before the season started, Scott Parker complaining about the lack of investment and all that, and I thought surely they're just going to be Derby County season almost. But no, the amazing job O'Neill did. But then the other team you went for was Sheffield United.
Yeah, and it's a shame because I really like Sheffield United. I studied in Sheffield. My halls of accommodation was right next to Bramall Lane. I must have got to about 10 games in the home end supporting Sheffield United.
So did I. So good city. I studied up in Sheffield as well. Loved it.
So that's probably the one away game I'm really looking forward to. So there's no new grounds for me next season, but that will give me a chance to go and revisit a few old stomping grounds. So I really like Sheffield United, but I look at their squad and I sort of think, who's going to score the goals? Last season they got Burney, India, Brewster. None of that is screaming goals, and they're not going to go out and sign anybody. So Bramall Lane as well. Like I said, I've been there quite a few times. They've got their nice little song about fill up my senses and all that sort of stuff. But again, it's not the most hostile of places to go. So I just don't. I feel like there's a lot they need to improve, and I don't see them having that togetherness of a squad that will keep them up. Like I don't know. I just can't quite get my head around how are they going to keep clean sheets? How are they going to create goals? And what is intimidating going to a very nice stadium? So I just can't. I can't. I think they're going to finish bottom. I think they are. Yeah. I can't see. I hope I'm wrong. Like I said, I really like Sheffield United, but I think they are going down.
Well, great minds think alike, Webbo, because
Mm.
I've also gone with Sheffield United to finish bottom of the league.
Mm.
I'm the same as you. I look at that squad and I'm not. I don't see the goals. Never got McBurney. No, I just something about him I don't really care for, to be honest. But yeah, I was also in Sheffield 3 years, 2005, 2008. Brilliant city, loved it. The Lead Mill, Ecky Road, all those sorts of places, you know. So very unique city as well. You walk around it and you see the hills everywhere, and you see all these at night. You'll see the lights all along the hills. It's quite like. I don't know, you don't really see that sort of sight in the UK very often.
It's a beautiful city. Absolutely love it.
Yeah. Big, and I went to Bramall Lane last when we lost 2-0. Jack Grealish hit the crossbar with a penalty. That was miserable. And I was sat in the Sheffield end because my Sheffield mate got me a ticket. So I'll probably be there again, hopefully next season. But yeah, I've gone with them to come bottom. Though while I'm saying this, they'll probably get us first day of the season at Bramall Lane, and it'll be like, oh, for God's sake.
Yeah.
I regret predicting that now.
All the teams I've got going down will beat us at home.
Yeah.
That bit's a given.
The podcast's viewing figures are plummeting down the table. So yeah, my bottom three were I went Sheffield United bottom, second bottom Bournemouth. I'm surely they're going to run out of energy or luck. I think. Well, it's unfair to say it wasn't luck. It was good talent and good management's what kept them up. But I it's a lot to do it again, I think. And then I went with Luton.
I had them 17th, so that was my decision. Yeah.
Right. I think Luton are very physical, big side, and if they can Burnley it, you know, like as in the traditional Burnley of tough, hard to beat. That ground, you know, you go there and it's a bit of an acid test, and like I just remember watching that player final against Coventry and thinking they look massive, like a really big side. So if they can do the sort of Stoke City approach, maybe they'll actually finish higher up the table. And I was thinking in my head maybe they'll finish somewhere like 12th. But I have just gone with it that away from home they might just get beaten quite a lot, and I don't know. I mean, I just wonder what sorts of players they'll attract. It depends, I guess. But you've sort of convinced me Forest might actually finish bottom three now, rather than Luton. But I'm going to stick with it. I'll stick with Luton, and then fourth bottom I went with Forest. I
think the novelty for me with Sheffield United have been in the Premier League many times. I think Burnley will be fine in terms of the teams coming up, but Luton, everything about Luton, they'll be so excited about that, and with that comes a little bit less pressure. Like I know they were flirting with the Premier League, but it was probably never really on the true agenda. And that means when they get beaten 5-6-0 at the odd game, which will happen to all these teams, it won't be as dramatic as it could be to another team. I think Rob Edwards will do a good job of saying, well, you know, we've lost 6-0 to Man City, so what? That was never our competition, and I think he is a good manager, and I think he will just do it, just get enough. But it will be tight. I haven't got him finishing 17th, and it was just the fact that if they play at Kenilworth Road, I should add, if they have to move out to MK Dons, which I don't think is going to happen. But if that were to happen, then I'd completely change my mind. If they don't play at Kenilworth Road, then they will go down.
Yeah, I think so. It all comes down to it's amazing, isn't it? How stadiums make such a difference. So we've done our bottom four, we've done our top seven. So there's the muddle then. There's the race that where Aston Villa have traditionally been in the race for 12th place, the coveted race for 12th place. So I guess if you sort of round it out then, so 8 down to 16, how does your league table look at the end of next season?
And I think this is, when you look at that bottom three, there's going to be quite a lot of points taken from each other because I could look at this all day and there's not much in here that you can really stick your hat on and genuinely argue for and against, isn't there? There's a lot of similarities. So I had Spurs in 8th, Brighton in 9th, which is probably a little bit harsh, but they're going to lose players. They're going to be in Europe. They were the team of all the teams in Europe that I felt could struggle the most because they don't have the biggest squad. They're going to be signing players that I know have always done well from unknowns beforehand, but surely they can't keep signing world-class players out of the blue. They will make mistakes. I still think a top 10 finish with a European campaign is not a bad return. I had Burnley in 10th. I think they're a well-oiled team. I think what they did last season was excellent. And I think they'll be excited to come back. Company will want to prove a lot of people wrong and change the way people look at Burnley. I had Fulham in 11th place. That was mainly down to the fact that Mitrovic got banned at the end of this season. Because if he hadn't got banned, I'm sure he would have got linked to other clubs. But that ban has meant that clubs will probably be put off by him. So Fulham will be absolutely fine because of him. Then I had Brentford. And speaking of bans, that is the biggest team. There's a lot going on at Brentford. And I couldn't, so I sort of just, in the end, played it safe with Brentford. I just stuck them pretty much bang in the middle of 12th. But I wouldn't surprise me if they went down. Just because this Tony thing is so hard for them. Because it's their prize asset. That just based on Brentford's history, if they were to get 50 million, let's say before he got his ban, 50 million for Tony is probably minimum they would have got. Brentford, you would have guaranteed. Brentford and Brighton, if you give them 50 million, they are going to make a hell of an investment and then turn that into 300 million pounds worth of players overnight. They are so good at scouting, but they're now stuck with a player that can't train, they can't sell, they've still got to pay his wages, they can't go out and spend big and replace him because they haven't got that money coming in for him. So it is, and he scored something like 29 of their goals last season or something daft like that. So it's a real big problem for them. And I think the odd game will be fine. Like if you miss a player for 5 games, you're probably okay. But this is half the season, so it's not back till January. So Brentford, for me, I sort of played it safe and sticking 12th. But if you'd have turned up and said, I've got them in my bottom 3, it wouldn't have surprised me.
Oh, okay. So that's an interesting one. Yeah, I've got a bit to say about Brentford as well.
And then I had West Ham, sort of similar to what you said earlier. I can see an argument for them finishing in the top 10, but losing Rice, still being in Europe, a come down from winning a trophy. You could again, I'll make an argument that they'll have a really slow start and just struggle. I'll ask you a question now, which you can answer once we finish. Is who do you think the first manager will be to go?
Ooh, okay.
And that may be an indication of which team I'm talking about there.
Right, okay.
And then I had Palace in 14th. Just such a strange club. Like if I was a Crystal Palace fan, I'd be so annoyed with the re-signing of Roy Hodgson. Yes, it was okay. But what's the future? What is the point of Crystal Palace at the moment? They've just brought back a 70. They can only do one more year. It's not progression. It's just such a small-minded attitude. I don't really like Palace, I must be honest. With the disappointment, I just think it's so unambitious. It always makes me laugh when people say, oh, you're deluded as a Villa fan thinking Europe. I said, there's nothing wrong with having ambition. You look at some of these clubs now that are just happy plodding in mid-table. You see, well, what's the point? And the next team are exactly another example of that. And Everton, I had as 15th. It's like, when does it all change for Everton? They've got to pay off their stadium debt. They're not even in their stadium yet. They're going to be under Sean Dyche. Will get them well drilled and organised, so they will stay up. And they're not going to turn into a top 7 team in any stretch of the imagination. So it's just a bit like, when does it change for Everton fans? Genuinely, so I don't know. So I had them 15th, and then Wolves in 16th. So spoke to a few of my Wolves mates, and so I was like, "What's going on at Wolves?" And they said, "We don't know." Everything about Wolves at the minute is players being linked away. Neves is looking like he's going. There's no money coming into the club. They're just desperate to keep hold of their manager, who pretty had almost a similar impact as Unai Emery.
Mm-hmm.
So they're really confident. The Wolves fans are really confident in their manager, and they say if the board back the manager, we will go places. But there's a genuine fear that the manager will walk before the season starts. So they could be another shout to go down. But
Yeah.
I had them in 16th just at this moment in time. There's more negative press than there is positive. But
Yeah.
they could easily jump 4 or 5 places just overnight if something changes.
Yeah. And where did you have Everton? I don't know if I missed that one. 50, Everton were 15th. Right.
Yeah.
Similar league table to me. This is going to be a tight race for this Nando's. I'm telling you, Webbo.
Yeah, I'm backing it all on Man United.
Oh yeah, I'm backing Declan Rice to have such an impact on next season's league table because for me, so 8th to down to sort of 17th. So 8th, I went with Spurs. I just don't quite know what's going on there at the moment. I just don't know if I trust Levy to get it right this summer, though I do trust Ange, their manager. I think he's a very smart, canny manager. I'm excited to see what he does. Brighton in 9th. I went Brentford 10th. Interesting points you made. I actually predicted for them to get relegated last season. So it was a bit, I got a bit stick for predicting that after they did so well. But the reason I did is just because second season syndrome, I thought, plus the fact that they'd actually had a really bad run until Christian Eriksen came in the season before. And then obviously Eriksen left. And I thought, well, is it going to, could it fall apart a bit? But I just wonder if Thomas Frank is such a canny coach that he might be able to get them to cope without Tony, even though Tony is such a major player for them and kind of arguably irreplaceable. But I sort of think Frank might get them all right again next season. They're tough to beat, I think. Brentford. Sorry, I always do that. Brighton, Brentford. 11th, I went with Burnley. Again, I think you're right. I think Kompany's going to get them. I think he'll want something to prove and want to show that they're better than they are. They'll probably get beaten 6 or 7-0 a couple of times just because of the way they'll try and play. But I think they'll also get a few decent results next season. So I fancy them to do all right. Palace is a funny one. I went with them in 12th. I'm exactly the same as you. I think the Hodgson thing is a bit odd. Zaha looks like he is finally going to leave. PSG, Saudi Arabia, wherever it is. I do think that they've got, in Elise and Eberechi Eze, they've got 2 really, really talented players, but there's something lacking there at Palace. I think 12th, I'm looking at now and thinking that could also be a relegation, a team that maybe just really falls away next season. But
if you look back to last season, it was like with about 8 games to go, the bottom 12th below, everyone was in that relegation fight, weren't they?
Exactly.
With 2 games later, a few teams had managed to escape. But I think it'll be similar this time around. Like, for example, if Luton are at home to any team that we've mentioned finishing in the bottom half, you could fancy them getting points.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I agree with you. Anybody from 12th downwards is going to be in a relegation fight in about April time, and a few will eventually escape it.
Yeah. I think 13th, I went Fulham. Paulinho, depends if he goes or not. He's a key player for them. Everton in 14th. Now, Everton, I'm sort of partly tempted to wonder whether, there's been some teams that have all been lingering around the relegation zone and just survived for a few years. Villa did that for a long time, then went down. Stoke did that for a while, then went down. Southampton have done that recently and just gone down. I do wonder if Everton are really, really risking it. There's this ruling, I think, financial fair play that might be coming up. They're probably restricted with what they can spend, just with the stadium and that sort of. But so I don't know with Everton. I just think Sean Dyche is probably just canny enough to get them enough results again. But I just can't see them not having anything other than a really underwhelming season again. 15th Wolves. I also think they're it feels negative, and if they lose Ruben Neves, then who knows really. It feels like they need quite a bit of work as well. West Ham, that's the team I've gone to fall away. I think Europe, I think striker as well. That Antonio, don't know if he can, how long he can keep doing it for as that striker for them. They've got Danny Ings as well, but and then Rice going. I really think it's like a Grealish effect at Villa. I just wonder if they're going to be able to cope with that, and how long it's going to take them to get over the fact that Rice isn't there anymore. So I've gone with them in 16th. If any Cockney West Ham fans are watching this, will be laughing at me now. And then at Forest 17th and Luton, Bournemouth, Sheffield United. So Webber, those are our league tables.
There we go. They're locked in.
They're locked in. They're not a year away from now. I tell you what, I can't wait to see you buy me that Nando's, mate. I can't see.
Mate, if Villa finish in 6th, wins you a Nando's, I am absolutely happy with that, mate. That's fine.
Wait to see how wildly wrong we are. It's gonna be like that will be the funniest bit, is looking back and be like, my God, did we really predict City? I predicted City to win the league. They got relegated. Never saw that. But yeah, there's a couple of other questions though. You mentioned it. First manager sacked. Who are you going with?
So I think it was about 12 teams got rid of their manager, wasn't it, last season?
Yeah, quite a lot.
Crazy, wasn't it? You sort of think the top half is set unless somebody poaches, like you mentioned, an England manager, but that looks pretty set. So I would say Forest. I think Cooper got close towards the end of last season. They stuck with him. If they have a poor start, then he is on borrowed time, it feels. David Moyes has probably done himself enough with that conference win. That was such a big win. But if they have a really poor start, they will lose patience quickly with him.
Mm-hmm.
Forest.
Yeah, I think that's a fair one. I venture towards thinking maybe Paul Heckingbottom, Sheffield United. I just wonder whether they'll be patient enough. If Sheffield United have a bad start, whether their board will just go, lost 3 in a row, right, gone straight away and get somebody else in, kind of a bit like Scott Parker. But so I'm going to go with Heckingbottom, but Steve Cooper as well. I think is I could see that as well. I think if Forest have a bad start, I could see their owners who, quite colourful bunch, but the way they. If you read the Wikipedia page, at least. But yeah, I think I do wonder if they had a poor start next season, whether they'd think that we stuck with you last season and saw it out. We gave you patience. We'd hoped that you'd be able to fix that this season, and you haven't. So we're just going to get something new as quickly as we can. Whether they might be of that mindset, maybe go try and get a high-profile manager from La Liga or something like that. They wouldn't be the first club to have done that, would they? So I've gone with Heckingbottom or Unai Emery, sacked after 3 games. We'll all be...
that would be depressing.
Can you imagine? Second game in, we want Emery out. Can you imagine?
When we used to Rapid Vienna again.
Yeah. The nightmare has returned again. We lose away at this relegated team again on the first day. No. So there's but FA Cup. I think you might have said it before. Actually, you went with Arsenal.
Yeah, and I think I felt bad for putting them 4th. So I thought I'm gonna make Arsenal fans feel a little better. I'll give them the FA Cup.
Yeah.
I'll sit with Arsenal.
Arsenal, yeah. God, the FA Cup's bloody hard to predict, isn't it? Because God, it just could be anyone. I'll go with Liverpool. I'll say that they'll go on a cup run, and they'll be the team to beat City. I think they do have they've shown themselves capable in the past of being the team that can really unsettle City in a way that few others can. So I'm going to go with them. League Cup.
So this is the cup I genuinely think we could win.
Yeah, I think
Newcastle
so.
will be strong. However, I haven't. I said at the top of the call, Man City will win a trophy, and that's two trophies that I've said they're not going to win. So I've got to put them down for something. And
Yeah,
I say the League Cup, which is completely a contradiction based on the thing. I think they're going to have a slow start, which the League Cup starts really early.
yeah.
Yeah, I have to put Man City down to win something. So yeah, I'll put them down for the League Cup. But it wouldn't surprise me at all if one of those middle teams really goes after it. Spurs desperate for silverware as well. That could actually be a really good competition this year.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, like Chelsea will go for hard for it, I'd think as well. Like
Yeah.
it'll be it's a as the quality of the top of the Premier League becomes ever harder to just finish high,
Yeah.
more and more teams just want to win that League Cup.
Yeah.
And I think it's one Villa can win. I mean, I think we can win the FA Cup as well, but I think I think City are going to try and go for the quadruple next season.
Yeah.
So I think they'll go hard for this one, and I also have gone with City to win the League Cup. Champions League.
Uh, I'll go probably being swayed slightly with today's transfer news of Jude going to Real Madrid.
Okay.
That is such a great signing, isn't it?
Fantastic signing.
I
What a
know
player.
I know he's ex Blues and all that sort of stuff, but you get over that quickly because he is a generational talent. It is so excited to see him, and the fact that him and Rice are going to be out midfield for probably the next 3 or 4 major tournaments.
Yeah.
Just gives me so much confidence that England could finally win a trophy.
Yes.
I think that him and Modric's play together is quite an exciting format, and they always do well in the Champions League. So there's only really 3 or 4 teams you'd be putting your bet on to begin with, and Real Madrid are a pretty obvious one. So yeah, let's go Real Madrid.
Yeah, Jude Bellingham, Stourbridge's own.
Stourbridge's own, yeah, played for the Glass Boys.
Yeah, so you're Jude Bellingham's one of your own, Stourbridge local. Jack Grealish from Solihull, so I'm Solihull as well. So look at that, it's lovely. Who'd have thought 2 of the most expensive players of all time would not be from like Rio de Janeiro, Buenos Aires, but Stourbridge and Solihull? I absolutely love that fact.
Yeah. If they could reinvest in their local towns now, that would be absolutely fantastic.
Yeah. Oh, Jack Grealish should be buying out Rosie's nightclub in Solihull. God only knows what he get up to there. I don't even want to know. But yeah. So that's Real Madrid. Like I said, I'm going to go City win it again.
You're going all in on City, aren't you?
I think they're going to just do it again. Kovacic, they've just signed, or the signing from Chelsea. Yeah. They're just so good, but so strong. But yeah, I could also see it that maybe they can't keep up that momentum. But I don't know. I fear Guardiola's ferocious temperament. It just depends. The way what I think might stop City. I watched Barcelona when Guardiola was manager. Right? I used to watch them every week because I was really into La Liga, and I think it's the best football team I've ever seen in my life. I just think they were, but. They came back from a season where they'd won everything. And then the season after, Mourinho, it was the second season at Real Madrid. And Madrid, whilst they had tons and tons of quality, was still not as good a football team as Barcelona. But Mourinho just gave them a nasty streak.
Yeah.
And I wonder if there's a team like Manchester United who, whether they can make the right signings and go nasty, or Liverpool can go a bit nasty, that's the way probably to unsettle City. Go into these games with them and just do it. Just be, come out of it. And everyone's, writing articles about how terrible you are. We hate them and all that. But go in there with a siege mentality and be like, no, actually, we're gonna stick it up this City. Then maybe I think teams could actually unsettle them.
Yeah, and I think that's why I think they're going to have a slow start, because everybody wants to beat the treble winners. Like whoever goes to the Etihad first, if they can beat them, it's such a it's an even bigger thing, and they will start slow. They generally always Guardiola teams start slow, but if they're within contact distance in January, February time, they just change mentality, and then it just becomes real again. So that's the only reason I think they will start slower than normal, and these teams. Like Liverpool are so pissed off, Man United are so pissed off, Chelsea are pissed off. They are all, in my opinion, going to try and start the season ridiculously well. And if you've got 2 or 3 massive clubs putting pressure on them, maybe it will have an impact on City. Maybe.
Yeah. And then of the big one, the Conference League. Who's gonna win it?
Sod it, Villa.
Yes, I'm going Villa. I'm going Villa.
Why not? We probably won't even get into the group stage. We'll lose to Juventus in the playoff. But yeah, why not?
Rapid Vienna ruins our day again. But look, we got the manager who's been there, done it in Europe.
Yeah.
Maybe, we'll make a couple of signings. Tielemans, if Tielemans plays on a Thursday, Douglas Luiz plays on a Sunday in the Premier League.
It's not bad, is it?
That's not bad at all, is it? I think we've got the team to do it. We've got the manager to do it. The experience of a Thursday night and a Sunday isn't there with the players yet, so that will be something to adapt to. And I think it'll be interesting to see how Villa react to it. But West Ham did fine. Not last season, struggled in the league, but the season before that, semi-final Europa League, finished 7th in the league. So why can't Villa? Why can't Villa?
Yeah, if we get through into the group stages, the playoff, we could be an unseeded team, and so the actual playoffs could be quite hard. But actually, once the group stages comes along, if we're in it, we'll probably be 3rd or 4th favourite to win it. I know it's awkward because I think the Europa League teams come into it, so you never quite know who could fall into it and stuff like this. But Juventus will be huge favourites. They're a cut above. They'll find a way to bribe a few teams along the way as well. They probably own half of the teams already entered into it, or something like that. But yeah, why not? Let's go on a European tour and enjoy ourselves.
Yeah, we're all going on a European tour. Can't wait. Yeah. I want the most random places. I want to be playing Lincoln in Gibraltar, and I want an away day in Ireland as well.
I want a new country. A new country would be fantastic.
If you go for all my family over in Ireland, I'd love to go watch Shamrock Rovers or something like that. But I guess any other questions? Maybe any others you could think of that anything not covered?
No, I mean you're starting to go down the golden boot thing, but we can all say Haaland for the next 10 minutes and how great he'll be. Yeah. But no, I think that's enough predictions for the time being. I'll maybe pre-order me Nando's now.
Yeah. And also as well, I might as well ask you about the Villa as well, just before we go. Where how do you think Villa have started this transfer window so far? What do you make of the boardroom developments as well?
So I think firstly, Tielemans, fantastic bit of business. There's absolutely no two ways about it. It's an area we looked at times weak in because when Kamara was injured, you were playing Dendoncker in there, you were playing Chambers in there a couple of times, and they are players that we need to replace if we want to take that next step. And Tielemans has done it for Leicester, won the FA Cup, been part of that. Does he start? Don't know. Based on last season's form, he wasn't up to scratch with McGinn, he wasn't up to scratch with Luiz, he wasn't up to scratch with Kamara. That's why Leicester went down. But there is a top quality player in there who plays for Belgium while they still rank number 1 in the world for a reason. So, yeah, fantastic bit of business. I sort of try to ignore a lot of the links with players because there's just so many that until they become concrete, you don't know. But the owners are going to go big. They're going to spend money. They want to invest. If there's a player out there that a deal can be done that we want, I have no doubt that the board will back Emery. So that's in a good position. The personal thing surprises me, I must admit. There seems to be a little bit of unrest. If you look at the reports, obviously the Barcelona chap who said yes, then said no, now may come back, who knows. So they've wanted to make changes. I think Perso gets a little bit of a bad press, which he brings upon himself due to his own ego. But you can't deny he has been involved with the club during a very, very successful period in the sense of where we were, how stable we are now, how the fact we've just done a prediction and I can't see us finishing in the bottom half unless we go on a really, really good long cup run. So the only reason you see us doing poorly is because of a positive. So we are in a really good position. And, as the salesman that he is, he said, I've left the club in a better position than when he joined. Could not be more true. What I do believe is there's a couple of names that they have earmarked and they will go after in the boardroom to get what they see as the right fit. I'll be honest with you, Frankie, I don't really know what all these people do day in and day out. You sort of hear their names, get involved. What I am really pleased about is there's so many clubs right now who have negative press. So many clubs right now who have run poorly, going out of, who was it yesterday? Wigan getting set, getting written up, getting their marching orders as a club. You look at Birmingham City, right? You look at Albion. There's so many teams. You look at Newcastle being run completely unethically. Not that I blame the fans or anything like that. I'd still support Villa if they were, if somebody from Saudi came in. It's not, I'm never going to be asked who runs Aston Villa Football Club, so I'll support them no matter what. But right now, we have got fantastic owners. We've got a squad foundation that, on merit, finished 7th in the league. If we're ever going to progress and push forward, it is in the next 2 to 3 years. But to go forward in this league is so hard.
Really hard.
We've just talked there about Chelsea and Tottenham having a bad season, and that is a one-off. Tottenham may be in a bit more of a mess than Chelsea, but these teams only have one-offs when they have bad seasons. Then they put a decade together of top 4 finishes.
Yeah.
We and Newcastle and Brighton have got to continue to unsettle the media. We've got to continue to unsettle the norms of the Premier League officials and try and allow teams that have been traditionally mid-table teams to fight with the big boys. And we have to continue to hope that we can do that. But we're never going to be in a better position and have a better foundation than we will now.
Yeah, for sure. There's definitely, it is, the Premier League is a super league now, essentially. I mean, just the quality and the financial power of so many clubs is just off the charts, really. So breaking into that top 8 on a regular basis, I mean, it's a top 8 now, isn't it? Really, like it was top 4, 10 years ago. Then it became the top 6. Now it feels like it's a bit of a top 8, doesn't it? And to break into, beyond 6th is just so difficult. But as you say, with the ownership and the manager we have and sort of the ambition demonstrated, it just feels like there's a lot of positivity around Villa. And even when I listen to, podcasts of just wider football podcasts like Football Ramble or Football Weekly, and you hear Villa come up, it's always you get a sense from non-Villa fans of Villa seem like a destination now. Villa seem like a team that's on the up. So there's certainly there's certain positivity there, and I think there'll be some interesting signings this summer. And 1 or 2 of the youth players who've been on loan might step up as well. I'm just in a really good space with Villa. I'm really happy with where we're going, and I sort of don't fear that the ownership will just pull the plug in the way that, say, Randy Lerner did. The impression you get is that they're in this more for the long haul. And
and they'll eventually get bored. They as much as they love Villa, they're not there to do anything than improve the club and improve their bank balance. At the end of the day, they understand that pot of gold in the Premier League is huge, and finishing 7th must have gotten them a fair return. And if we were to win the Europa Conference, you get quite a lot of money for that. And then if they had 1 season in the Champions League, they would probably get a return on investment straight away. So they won't chase it forever. But you can't really see it ever going down the pan. So it would be a club that's always sellable, and I can't see it going horribly wrong. So you'd have thought if they do get fed up in 5-6 years' time, you feel like it'd be in a position that it'd be quite a nice asset for somebody to take over and come in and maybe take it on to that next level. So it's a great time to be a Villa fan. And I genuinely can't wait for tomorrow. The fixtures coming out, start planning a few more away days. Can't wait for August the 7th when the draw for the Conference League is made and I get to book a flight to Azerbaijan or some nonsense place like that. And then August the 12th comes along and we go down to Luton and we lose and come crashing back down to reality.
Yeah, all the positivity. And it's like this time next year, we're there with our Nando's. We're like Villa in 20th place. I didn't see it coming. Who could have seen that coming? Emery, the first manager, out. The board sold out.
Trying to poison each other in a Nando's to try to make it end.
Yeah, Tony Shear's back in his weird tweets. Oh God, what a time that was! But what a good time it is now, and hopefully that continues. But Webber, you are chairman of the London Lions. We're currently in the London Supporters League. We're fighting, beat PSG on penalties the other day in a thrilling contest. Now we've got Inter in the semi-finals. So if ever want to get involved with that, please do. Please get involved with the London Lions. But Webber, you are chair of the London Lions. So please tell us, how can people get involved with the group?
Yeah, so it's at ABFC London Lions across all social network platforms. And yeah, you're absolutely right, Frankie. Big weekend ahead in Corumsfield in central London, near Holborn Station. We have Inter Milan in the London Supporters League in the semi-final at 3 p.m. or just after 3 p.m. this Sunday. So if anybody's listening to this, fancies watching Villa v Inter Milan in a semi-final, sponsored by Phil King, then come on down and support us, show your name, say that you're interested in playing. And it's not just a football team, it's a big community that watches anything to do with Villa, has socials. And if you're in London, new to London, just moved here and you fancy keeping in touch with the Villa, it's the best place to do so.